Brett, the Amazon delivery driver, has been making mysterious off-the-record deliveries to the old Jameson mansion for some under-the-table cash. What is Old Man Jameson ordering exactly? And why is Brett forbidden from looking inside the boxes? Brett was usually able to hide the strange, mysterious, unmarked boxes covertly under his usual deliveries in the back of the truck. If he made it up the hill as his last delivery in the evening, then he could quickly dispatch with the special assignments without detection. Still, he hated the deliveries to the old Jameson mansion. The decaying old thing up on the hill overlooking the town was creepy at best. Plus, if his bosses at Amazon ever found out that old Brett was making unscheduled, unauthorized, private deliveries for someone, well, he would be quickly fired. But the $1,000 in cash for each discreet delivery was hard to resist, especially for someone like Brett, whose wife had just delivered their first baby and who could really use some extra money. Of course, he had wondered many times what Old Man Jameson was doing up in the mansion, that giant house that seemed to have been there as long as anyone's grandparents could remember. Jameson rarely descended into town, maybe once a week to get basic groceries. He never spoke to anyone unless they spoke first, and even then he would just curtly nod his head, tip his hat, and mumble a greeting. The man held an old-world, rather European air about himself, distant but not impolite, formal but not stiff. No one knew where he had come from originally, and like his house, no one in town could remember a time without him living up there. Brett's only interactions with the hermit were the notes that Jameson would leave him with each delivery, little handwritten notes in a spidery, old-fashioned handwriting and on thick, yellowing stationery. Each note would provide the details of the next delivery, and so they had their little system. He never interacted with Old Man Jameson in person, except for randomly bumping into him in town here and there. Brett would always pick up the packages according to Jameson's instructions on the notes. He would drive down to an abandoned warehouse at the docks, and the packages would always be hiding in the back of one of the delivery ports under some decoy junk. Brett had no idea who put them there, and he didn't care. The late afternoon sun was yawning into evening, and Brett had just finished his last official Amazon delivery, a small package for an apartment complex in town. All he had to do now was to drive up the hill to the Jameson place, leave the package in the usual stealthy spot, find his envelope of sweet cash under the doormat, and get home to his family. His wife knew about the special deliveries, and while she was nervous about it sometimes, wondering if Brett were unintentionally doing something illegal, still, that money helped to pay the diaper and food bills, so she accepted it. As he downshifted the big Amazon truck to begin the climb up the hill, the orange sun was giant and setting behind the mansion, casting the house in a strange, sort of ironic halo. The two top windows looked like eyes staring down at Brett, deciding if he were worthy to approach the mansion, carefully judging and vetting him as his Amazon truck struggled up the incline. Brett thought of the dozens of deliveries he had made for Old Man Jameson. Most of them had been a single box, sometimes two, but never more. The boxes usually stood about 3 feet high and equally wide and deep, large enough to store any manner of illegal or dark things, yet small enough to look like regular Amazon packages for plausible deniability. One thing Brett always noticed was that the boxes were cardboard on the outside, like all of his deliveries, but just inside was a wooden box frame, as if something within needed reinforcement or stability. He and his wife had played the guessing game many times. What could Old Man Jameson possibly be receiving up there all alone? They had joked back and forth about pilfered archaeological artifacts, stolen art, exotic animals, and even deliveries from cartels. In reality, they could not imagine Jameson being involved with anything like those. As weird and reclusive as the old man was, he did not come across as overtly evil, more just dark and mysterious. Once, Brett's wife had made a joke about Jameson ordering occult or black magic items from Europe so that he could conjure demons up there. But again, Brett was sure the deliveries were something more innocent. Then again, why would Jameson pay him so much money for the secret boxes and his silence? This evening's delivery was a little something different. Unlike the usual boxes, this one was enormous. At over 7 feet long, 4 feet high, and equally wide, Brett had found it impossible to hide under his usual Amazon boxes, so he had simply slid the giant parcel to the front of the package area in the large truck, and hoped that a field inspector would not pull him over. So far, luck was with him. This evening's job was different, not only because of the size of the box, but because Jameson had promised him a special payment of $3,000. And honestly, for that amount of money, Brett could not have cared less what was in the box. Still, a little touch of curiosity tickled his brain. Brett's wife was the one who had planted the scene in his mind. Old man Jameson is obviously rich, and whatever's in those boxes is valuable enough that he's willing to pay you so much money for your secrecy and privacy, she had told Brett. Maybe it really is stolen treasure. You really should open one up and peek inside. What's the harm? You can seal it back up, and what if it's full of gold and jewels? You could pocket a tiny amount each time. We'd be rich. No way. That's a terrible idea, he had argued. I don't want any involvement in anything illegal. At least now, if the cops talk to me, I can still honestly say I have no idea what's in the boxes. But if I open one up, well, then we don't know what world we'll be sucked into. Still, her idea was nagging at him. It was not like he enjoyed his job. Sure, the pay was all right, and it gave his family health insurance. Still, it was hell on his body. Only in his 30s, he already had back problems from all the lifting and pushing. Delivering packages was not his life's goal or his dream. And what if, just what if, the boxes really did contain diamonds or gold or piles of cash? He would only have to skim the top a few times, and then he and his family could move away and never worry about it again. They could live a good life, even a wealthy life. And what of today's delivery? The box was so large. It had to contain something very valuable. And he knew parcel delivery well enough to be able to open the cardboard exterior, pry open the wooden crate inside, then reseal it without it being noticeable. If it did end up being something illegal, he supposed he could just deny it. He looked up at the looming mansion. He knew he had to make a quick decision. Jameson insisted that the deliveries all be done before sunset, and the sun was just above the horizon. He had about 10 minutes to choose. Deliver the package and take the $3,000 and continue his life of delivering for Amazon, or take a chance at a fabulous new life somewhere else. He drove up on the circular front driveway of the old Jameson mansion, then pulled the truck around to the rear entrance where he left the parcels. Experience told him that Jameson himself would never come outside. The ancient recluse had made it perfectly clear that he wanted no contact, no human interaction in the deliveries. Just leave the package, take the envelope, and go. To heck with it, he thought. I'm doing it. Just one peek and nothing more. He engaged the parking brake and stepped into the rear of the truck where the enormous package still sat. He glanced out at the sun and saw that he had about 7 minutes until sunset. His hands slightly shaking from nervousness, he used his precision box cutter to slice a clean, neat line in the cardboard exterior, a line he could easily patch back over with packing tape and make it unnoticeable. Opening the top cardboard flaps, he saw that, indeed, a wooden crate was inside. The crate's top was nailed closed, but he made quick work of that with the back of his hammer. The nails made a dry, squeaking sound as they pulled up through the wood. 4 nails should be enough, he reasoned. Just enough to raise one corner, shine his flashlight, and at least see what was inside. He took a deep breath and one last look to ensure that Old Man Jameson was nowhere to be seen. He had about 2 minutes before sunset. Only the sun's orange head still remained above the horizon. In the darkening, lengthening shadows, the old Jameson mansion lurked, darker than the night. Every door and every window glaring at him unblinking, almost daring, defying him to look inside the box. As the last few beams of sunlight spread across the land to bid goodnight to the world, one of them shone inside the box enough to make something glint and glimmer within. Brett's stomach leapt with excitement. His wife was right. There were diamonds and gold inside. Just one small handful, then he would reseal the box, deliver it, and be on his way to a brand new life. He pried the top back as much as he could and reached his hand inside, just as the sun finally set for the night. He didn't feel anything like gold or diamonds. Instead, he felt a cold surface that pressed in a little like a body. He jerked his hand back with a yelp, but as he pulled it out, a pale, thin hand with long yellow nails reached out and caught his wrist in a vice grip he could not escape. His body went cold and limp with fear as the rest of the crate's top burst open. From the crate rose the enshrouded, gaunt body of a pale corpse with black eyes and 2 fangs protruding from its mouth. It turned its head toward him and hissed, then opened its mouth to show its long, piercing fangs. Old Man Jameson's voice called out from somewhere just inside the house. "I told you not to look inside the packages, Brett!"